I was the one who stayed. When my father's health started failing, my older brother moved to Texas, chasing a better opportunity. My sister claimed her apartment in Chicago was too small to help, so it was just me working double shifts at a manufacturing plant outside Columbus, Ohio, paying the mortgage, covering the medical bills, fixing the leaking roof with my own hands. The house wasn't just wood and drywall. It was my childhood, my sweat, my sacrifice. Every paycheck I signed over felt like proof that I mattered. That one day, when Dad was gone, my family would remember who carried the weight. But when the will was read, I realized I had been nothing more than a convenience. Dad had left the house equally to all three of us. Equally. My brother, who hadn't visited in 2 years. My sister, who sent birthday texts instead of showing up. And me, the one who paid the property taxes, who refilled prescriptions at midnight, who slept on a hospital chair while machines beeped around us. I tried to reason with them. I showed them bank statements, receipts, proof of every sacrifice. They smiled politely. Then they said they wanted to sell. "You can't afford to buy us out," my brother said over speakerphone. "It's just business." Business. That word echoed in my chest like an insult. Within weeks, strangers were walking through my living room during open houses. People complimented the hardwood floors I had refinished myself. They admired the charming backyard where I buried our childhood dog. My siblings stood there acting like proud owners. When the house sold, they each took their share and left me with nothing but a small check, barely enough for a down payment. Anywhere in this market, I packed my tools, my clothes, and the last photograph of Dad from the mantel. As I locked the door for the final time, my sister hugged me awkwardly. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "It's just a house." But it wasn't just a house. It was the last place I ever felt valued. That night, sleeping in a cheap motel off Interstate 70, something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. They thought it was just business. Fine, if that's how they wanted to play it. I was about to become very good at business. That motel room smelled like old carpet and regret. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every sacrifice I had made. The overtime shifts, the missed promotions, because I couldn't relocate, the weekends spent fixing gutters while my brother posted beach photos from Galveston. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as reliable, replaceable. That realization hurt, but it also freed me. For the first time in my life, I stopped thinking about what was fair. I started thinking about leverage. See, while they were busy living their separate lives, I had been the one handling Dad's paperwork. I knew every financial detail, every debt, every quiet loan he had taken out during his final years. Loans my siblings never asked about. When the house sold, the title company cleared the mortgage, but there were still outstanding medical liens tied to Dad's estate liens. I had personally negotiated down but never finalized because I assumed we'd keep the property. When the estate officially closed, responsibility for those remaining debts didn't magically disappear. They were divided just like the house. Equally. I didn't lie. I didn't forge anything. I simply contacted the attorney who handled the probate process and requested copies of the filings. Then I sent a polite group email. Subject line: estate settlement clarification. I attached documentation showing the outstanding obligations. I included the breakdown, their names, their shares. My brother called first. "What is this?" he snapped. "It's just business," I replied calmly. "Equal means equal." Silence. My sister tried a softer approach. "You handled everything. Can't you just take care of it?" For years I had. Not anymore. I wasn't asking for revenge. I was asking for balance. They had already spent their house money. New car for my brother. Vacation photos already up on Instagram. My sister upgraded her condo furniture. Now creditors were contacting them directly. Suddenly, my phone didn't stop ringing. Suddenly, I mattered. But this wasn't the end. It was only step one. Because while they scrambled to cover debts they never knew existed, I was quietly doing something else. I was investing. Every cent of my share went into a small but growing real estate partnership with a contractor friend from the plant. Foreclosures, fix and flips, properties people overlooked. I had spent years maintaining a house. Now I was learning how to own them. And as my siblings argued about payment plans and credit scores, I made myself a promise. One day soon, I wouldn't just replace what they took, I would surpass it. And when that day came, they would finally understand my value, not because I begged for respect, but because I would no longer need it. The first property we bought was ugly. Peeling paint, broken porch steps, a kitchen that smelled like 20 years of burnt grease. Most people drove past it without slowing down. But when I stood in that living room with cracked plaster walls, I didn't see damage. I saw potential. During the day, I worked my shifts at the plant. At night, I tore out cabinets, laid flooring, and watched YouTube tutorials. Until I remembered every repair I had done on my father's house, every lesson learned the hard way. This time, it wasn't sacrifice. It was strategy. 3 months later, we sold that house for a profit. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was proof. We rolled the profit into the next property, then another. By the end of the first year, I wasn't just surviving. I was building momentum. My credit score climbed. My savings account stopped looking fragile. And word spread. A former supervisor introduced me to a local investor group. I sat quietly at first, listening, learning. These weren't flashy TV moguls. They were ordinary people who understood one thing: assets create freedom. Freedom. That was the word that stuck. Meanwhile, my siblings were still cleaning up their equal share mess. I heard through relatives that my brother had taken out a personal loan. My sister had dipped into her retirement account to settle part of the estate debt. They blamed me. Apparently, I was petty. But what hurt them wasn't the paperwork. It was the shift in control. For once, I wasn't the dependable younger sibling absorbing every burden. I wasn't the emotional sponge soaking up responsibilities so they could float. I was unavailable. 2 years after that motel night, I stood inside a property that was finally mine alone, not inherited, not shared, not divided. Mine. It wasn't as big as my childhood home, but it was newer, cleaner, paid mostly in cash. When I signed the closing documents, my hands didn't shake. They felt steady. I hosted a small housewarming. A few friends from the plant, my contractor partner. Laughter filled the rooms I had renovated myself. My phone buzzed halfway through the evening. A text from my sister. Mom says you bought a house. That's impressive. Impressive. That word tasted different than reliable. An hour later, my brother called. His tone wasn't sharp anymore. So, you're doing well? I'm doing fine, I said. For the first time in my life, they weren't speaking to me out of obligation. They were speaking to me with caution, and maybe, just maybe, with respect. But I wasn't finished yet, because real revenge isn't loud. It's patient, and I had just begun to build something they could never take from me again. Success changes how people look at you. At first, it was subtle. My sister started replying to my messages faster. My brother suddenly remembered my birthday without Facebook reminding him. Even extended relatives, people who barely acknowledged me, before were asking for advice about investments. I didn't brag. I didn't flaunt numbers. But word travels fast when someone you underestimated starts winning quietly. By year 3, I wasn't working the plant floor anymore. I had transitioned into managing properties full-time. Small multifamily units, smart renovations, steady rental income. Nothing flashy, just consistent, disciplined growth. I understood something now that I didn't back then. Wealth isn't about big moments. It's about controlled decisions stacked over time. One Sunday afternoon, my siblings asked to meet for coffee when they were both back in Ohio visiting Mom. We hadn't all sat at one table since the house sold. The tension was there, but it felt different. Less superiority, more calculation. My brother cleared his throat. We might have been too quick back then. That was the closest thing to an apology I was ever going to get. My sister stirred her coffee. You handled everything for Dad. We didn't really see how much you did. Didn't see, or didn't care? I let the silence stretch. Years ago, I would have filled it, made them comfortable, reassured them, smoothed everything over. Not this time. I did what needed to be done, I said evenly. Now I'm doing the same for myself. They exchanged a glance. Then my brother leaned forward. We're thinking about investing in a rental property. Maybe partnering? There it was. Not reconciliation. Opportunity. They didn't suddenly respect my heart. They respected my results. And here's the truth. For a split second, I wanted to say no. I wanted them to feel what exclusion felt like. I wanted them outside the door the way I had been. But revenge isn't always about shutting doors. Sometimes it's about controlling them. I don't do partnerships casually, I replied. If we work together, Everything is in writing. Clear terms. Equal responsibilities. Equal. The word landed heavier this time. They nodded quickly. In that moment, the power dynamic fully shifted. I wasn't the younger sibling trying to prove my worth. I was the one with leverage, the one with knowledge, the one they needed. And for the first time in my life, I realized something unexpected. I didn't hate them anymore, because I no longer needed anything from them. Respect had arrived not through shouting, not through begging, but through independence. But the final lesson, the one that would truly change everything, was still waiting. We did end up investing together, but on my terms. The contract was airtight, roles defined, profits structured according to contribution, not emotion. I made it clear from day one, this wasn't a family favor. This was business. And this time, I was leading. We purchased a modest duplex on the edge of a growing neighborhood. I oversaw inspections, contractor bids, tenant screening, everything. My siblings put in capital, but they quickly realized something uncomfortable. Money alone doesn't build stability. Discipline does. There were moments they slipped back into old habits, questioning decisions without understanding the process, suggesting shortcuts to save time. I didn't argue. I presented numbers, data, outcomes. Facts don't get ignored the way people do. Within a year, the property was cash flow positive. Clean books, happy tenants, appreciation climbing. At our annual review meeting, yes, I insisted on formal reviews. My brother leaned back and let out a little whistle. You're good at this, he admitted. Not lucky, not dramatic. Good. My sister looked at me differently that day. Not as the sibling who stayed behind, not as the emotional safety net, but as someone capable, strategic, strong. Then something happened I didn't expect. A few months later, Mom needed help moving into a smaller place. Without discussion, both of my siblings showed up. They coordinated, they lifted boxes, they handled paperwork. And when it came time to decide where Mom would stay temporarily, my brother said, maybe she can stay with you. You've always been the most responsible. But this time, the word didn't feel like a burden, because it wasn't assumed. It was acknowledged. That evening, after everyone left, my sister lingered by the door. We should have appreciated you sooner, she said quietly. You carried more than we realized. There it was. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. I nodded. I know, and I meant it. Years ago, I thought revenge meant taking something back, making them hurt the way I did when strangers walked through my childhood home. But real revenge? It was building a life so solid that their approval became optional. It was watching them adjust their tone, their behavior, their respect, not because I demanded it, but because I no longer tolerated less. They took my house. What I built afterward was bigger than walls and memories. I built leverage, stability, confidence. And in the end, they didn't just give me respect. I became someone who never had to ask for it again.